Alright guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about 3 wire strippers that I have and I consider, my bread and butter for wire stripping, making up, that type of thing. Each one of these has a different application, but I do have my favorite, right? So this one here is going to be the Klein Tools 11061 self-adjusting wire stripper and cutter. Alright, this one here is going to be the Klein Tools 11055 RINS insulated Klein-Kurve with insulated up to 1000 volts. And then this one here is going to be the Klein-Kurve heavy duty wire stripper, bolt cutter, and crimper, right? So right off the bat, each one of these has their application. Personally, my favorite is going to be this one, Klein automatic wire stripper. Why? Because, like I'll show shortly, you can strip a multitude of different wire easily, quickly, super clean. And when you're making up, hundreds and hundreds of splices in a day, when you're making up for industrial applications and that type of thing, right? You're gonna be able to use this, really go quick and get it done. This one here I like because if I don't know what I'm gonna be doing when it comes to makeup, I can take this, I can count on it having a crimper, right? In case I have to crimp, I can count on it having 632 and 832 bolt cutter, a pretty decent pair of cutters here. It is a pinch, or I guess you could say, yeah, pinch type of cutter that squeezes the wire together this way to actually cut, and it strips wire gauge all the way from 20 gauge to 10 gauge in stranded, and it strips from 18 all the way to 8 in solid, right? So the way American wire gauge works is that you start with a piece of wire, and the number of dies that you pass the wire through is going to be basically your AWG size. So for example, here I have a solid piece of 10 AWG, which means that this piece of wire here was passed through 10 dies before it got to this C mill diameter, right? So as you can tell, fairly stiff. And the higher you go in AWG, for example 12 gauge AWG, it's going to mean that this wire was passed through 12 dies before it got to the C mill diameter that it's at now, right? So, and this insulated one I haven't really used all that much. It came with a kit that I bought, but it also comes with the 632 and 832 cutter, a pair of diagonal cutters. But the way this one works is actually a shearing action, so you see the two blades actually cross each other like this. Some people believe it produces a better, cleaner cut. I think so, but it does have its limitations. It strips wire gauge from stranded 20 gauge to 12 gauge, solid 18 to 10 gauge. You're always going to have stranded gauge strip one size, I guess you could say lower, right? So if you can strip 10 solid, you're going to strip 12 stranded, because you don't want to risk actually stripping any strands when you strip your wire. So this one here, I don't really use all that much because I find that these two cover what I usually need. But a quick little demonstration, right? I'll start with I guess I'll start from what you'll commonly run into if you're running MC, right? So metal clad. This here is 12-2, which means that there's 2 conductors technically. This here is your hot, right? White, neutral, green, ground. So if you go to make up, you can grab your wires like so, right? And get them here. And what this does well is you can kind of get a gauge for it, right? So you grab it, you put it in here, strip. And that easy. It strips the actual insulation off, and it produces really clean, repeatable strip. So I personally did a couple modifications. This came with the wire stop, which I removed like almost immediately upon getting it, right? Because it was actually just getting in my way. It does have a couple of dials. This dial here is supposed to, I guess you could say kind of like modulate how hard this pinches your wire. I always keep it cranked down just because that's what works best for me, right? So I removed the wire depth gauge, and I kind of use this little silver rivet here to gauge how deep I'm going to strip it. So if I'm using Wagos, right, I'm going to place it right before I get to this little silver rivet like so, and then just squeeze and it strips the wire. Boom, right? If that's too much, it does have these cutters which are pretty stiff, but boom, just strip it, right? So quick demonstration of how fast you can strip with these, right, versus a conventional stripper like I'll demonstrate. You can go boom, 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 and then you have your stripped wire. If you're going to use wire nuts, it is recommended that you strip more. Why? Because you'll get a more solid connection when you twist. When you twist the wires together, you actually end up reducing the overall length because of the twisting motion, right? So for example, if I was going to strip for, let's say, a red wire nut, I'm going to strip up to the end of the actual silver rivet there, and I'll squeeze, strip that, boom. So that was a demonstration of how it strips 12-2 solid. I'll show you guys 12 gauge stranded, right? Another common wire size. So just same thing without adjusting anything, no thought process behind it, boom, strip, perfectly stripped every time, and you don't risk cutting any strands, right? So the way this works is actually pretty clever. So you put your wire in, and then you're going to notice that the first clamp that's going to grab the wire is this one here. So this, as you can see, it has a couple of like knurled teeth. It's going to grab the wire like so, right? It's going to grab that wire, and then this side has one more pronounced tooth on it on both sides. It's going to rip the insulation apart instead of actually cutting it. So I'll go slow here, boom. So if you guys saw, that actually ripped the insulation super clean. So I'll show you guys 10 gauge stranded without adjusting anything, boom, clean. Strip a little more here, quite a bit. Dang, that is clean right there. So that is a lot, probably more than you'll ever need for stripping, right? Another place where this stripper excels is when you're stripping luminaire MC. When you have a luminaire MC, you're going to see two dimmer cables that are wrapped inside of a pink insulation, right? So insulated wires inside of a pink sheathing. This strips the actual insulation away from the two dimmer cables without damaging the cables underneath, right? So that saves tons of time. As you can see here, I'll strip all the way down here, which is difficult, right? Boom, it actually shifted the insulation all the way. So if I wanted to pull this off, it would take a little bit, but I could. All right, so I would freaking literally just pull this insulation off there, and then I have about, you know, 2 inches. I can go up to 3 inches of stripped wire. But this is an example of how you could strip luminaire wire without actually damaging the dimmer cables underneath. So last but not least, you have wire that is not as common but is still out there, is 10 gauge solid, right? So again, without even adjusting anything, strips it, right? Strip some more off that. So now you have about 1 inch more than you'll ever need. You can use the cutters here to actually cut it down. Bam, problem solved. That is why I like this stripper the most, honestly. This stripper here, super clutch. You can make up super fast when you get used to this, and above all, it is efficient because you don't have to spend time looking for the exact hole you need to strip, and above all else, you don't risk actually cutting any strands off of your stranded wire, right? So next, I'm going to talk about these Klein-Kurve, you know, I guess you could call them combination strippers. I don't really use these as much, but I do use them. As you can see, I paint my tools green, handles green. I just haven't got around to painting these because I use them so much. So here I'm going to strip 10 gauge solid with these here. So again, you got to spend the time, actually look at this. Obviously, once you get good at this, you don't really have to see or look too much, right? So you're going to go ahead and strip your wire, which is not as clean, and there you go. You know, obviously you have your side cutters, diagonal cutters, whatever you want to call them, that works well. You do have a little bit of alignment tip here, and it has a gap at the tip. They say that this is so you don't damage your wire when you're pre-twisting. However, most manufacturers for wire nuts recommend against pre-twisting. You know, that's just a waste of time, and if the manufacturer doesn't call for it, why do it, right? So again, here's another demonstration of me stripping 12 gauge stranded with these Klein-Kurve. So find the depth, find the hole, and go ahead and strip. Yeah, these things are dull, not my favorite, not the best. I've seen pretty mixed reviews on them. Personally, I only carry them in an emergency situation where I don't have to strip all that much, don't know what I'm walking into. It'll get the job done, but it'll take longer, as you can see, versus something like this, right? Boom, 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 without any adjustments. So Now here you have the insulated pair of Klein strippers. I will say these cutters are way better because of the diagonal actual slicing motion that it uses to strip, like I mentioned before. So 10 gauge solid like nothing, right? And then if you wanted to actually strip this, you would just put it in your stripper, boom, strip. Yeah, that's a lot better. Absolutely no problem whatsoever stripping. So another demonstration here, boom, go ahead and strip this, and super quick and efficient. These actually work well. I like these a lot more, might give them more of a shot. So again, the stripping action works super crisp, right? And then you go ahead and find your strip gauge, strip, right? So then you have your stripped wire. Now when it comes to actually making up, usually you're gonna find 12 gauge MC, 12 gauge wire. So here's another demonstration here. So find your strip gauge, actually put it in, cut it, boom, quick, efficient, nothing to it really. I like these. So in order of what I like the most, I would say I like these best, these second best, and these third best, right? So yeah, I mean, what is there to say? There's really just strippers, you know, nothing to them really, but it is one of the most used tools that we have as electricians. So I will say that when you strip wire, is pretty easy to strip too many strands. So that's why I really like these. These excel in my opinion for that specific reason. So for example, here I'll demonstrate what cutting too much strands would lead to. I'll put it purposefully in the wrong hole, so I'll cut and then strip my wire. Yeah, so obviously if you have any type of practice, you're not going to strip this much, but check it out. You do run the risk if you're in a hurry and you're just trying to get a J box done, where let's say it's a 16 or a 12 by 12 J box. Yeah, you're gonna have a couple of strands, at least one or two, that you're gonna strip, but that in my opinion is completely unnecessary, right? If you can just use something like this, boom, right? No strands cut whatsoever. And to the people that use linemans to strip, here we go again. I am an apprentice, so I am learning, so I don't know how you guys do this fast or efficiently, but yeah, you guys aren't, there's no way you guys are as quick as something like this. And if you are, props to you, keep doing you, brother. Check that out. Let's try these that have a slicing cutting action for stripping, way sharper too. So let's try that. Yeah, see, you run the risk of cutting strands. I just don't see the benefit of actually stripping with anything but dedicated wire strippers. And you know, more power to you if you can do it. Carry less tools on the job, that type of thing. But for me, I'm gonna carry these Klein tools, automatic strippers, just because in my opinion they are the best go-to.